Hi, Michelle here. Welcome to my video editing station, otherwise known as my couch. Today what I'm going to talk about is the second part of my 16 Hoyas to Repot video series. What I did was I gathered up all of the Hoyas that had needed to be repot into something different. They were root bound, some had root rot, some even had root mealies. I hope that you like this video. If you do, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you like to see other planty content from me, please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you have any comments or any suggestions or any tips of your own, please leave them in the comments below. And otherwise, on with the Hoyas. The main reason that you would notice that your plant would have root mealies is the plant would stop growing, or that leaves would start dropping, or that leaves would yellow and fall off. Normally that's a watering issue, but it can be a root mealy issue. So that's something. Now this plant is a little interesting. This is a snow, is it Cui Silver, CUI. Now I've had this plant for several months, and this Hoya drops as many leaves on me as it grows. It's grown 3 leaves for me, and it's dropped 5. It's dropped, well, it dropped 1 in transit, so it's dropped 4 on me. And I'm going to take it out of this because I think it's got root rot from being in too small of a cup for too long. So I am going to feel these roots pretty aggressively. So this plant brings me to a conundrum. Do I want to upsize it all the way to this? This might be a little much. Do I want to put it in a pot that may take it longer to grow into, but it will be happier in the long period of time? Or do I want to put it into a short-term vessel in which to grow it for a short term? So I'm going to test it out and see what I think. This would be what would happen if I put it in a 2-inch cup. And that's not really that much room for this to grow. And this is if I put it in a 4-inch pot. This is a lot of room to grow. I'm in it for the long haul, so I'm gonna put this in the 4-inch pot. I'd rather have it take its time and fill out the roots from this 4-inch pot and stay in it and not have to worry about root death from repotting, and have it be in the pot it's going to stay in for a longer period of time and not have to put it through the stress of repotting it in, say, 6 months. Okay. So now you've went through my decision-making process on how I decide what to pot in what size. You literally do have to make the choice, though. When you put something in a big pot, and it's a Hoya, it does take its time to grow roots instead of putting on foliage or, okay, sorry about that, my battery went dead, so I'm not really for sure where in my monologue I left off, but basically what I was talking about is there are 2 paths. To quote the song, there are 2 paths you can go by, but in the long run, what you can do is, if you put the Hoya in a larger pot, it will devote more of its time into producing a larger root system. I would rather have a Hoya that becomes well established in its pot rather than producing some leaves, because I know the Hoya will produce leaves eventually. I'm going to keep this Hoya for a long time, and I know it's going to grow large in my care. So whether it takes me an extra 2 months to get that leaf production going or not, it's okay with me. So I hope that made sense. Of course, if you ever have any questions or comments, you know, or you want to talk about your preferred way of taking care of smaller rooted Hoyas, you know, put them in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you like to handle that. I'm just finishing up getting all the roots covered, and hopefully this change will encourage this Hoya to grow and not keep dropping leaves. I did check this Hoya out for flat mites, and I didn't see any. I did use my microscope, so, you know, we'll always check again, but hopefully, you know, hopefully now she grows. Now this one I'm not really for sure about. This is my Scortechinii, and I got this as these 2-leaf cutting, and all it ever did for me was produce these tiny, tiny, tiny little leaves. So I'm pretty sure that this root system is really gone, and I just never dealt with it. So I'm prepared for nothing good in this one. Yeah, it's got the, yeah, it's got root rot. I mean, these roots are tiny. They pull off at the top, the slightest touch. So what I'm going to do is, this root system is not all bad, but if you can see, if I pull it, just the slightest little touch pulls off roots. See these roots? They pull off at the slightest touch. So this tells me that this plant has had root rot for a very long time, and it needs to restore a new root system in order to grow. So I'm sterilizing the scissors, and I'm literally doing the exact same thing I did for the root mealies. I am restarting this plant. I am not hurting it by removing all the roots. I am giving this plant a chance to restart a brand new and even stronger root system, because obviously it is not thriving with the root system it has. So, and I will also check the stem. There we go. Sometimes you have to cut the stem to make sure that there is still life in it. And I had to do that. And as you can see, it doesn't have to bleed sap, just as long as there is a dot of sap in there. That shows you that there is still life in that But as you can see, just these roots, see, they just pull apart. So these don't have root mealies or anything like that, but they do need to be washed and separated. And I am going to use a new cup again. And these leaves are very, they create a very ill-placed. See, this brings up a point when you have to decide as well. if I put this in this pot, in this little cup, what's going to happen? The pot is 2 inches shorter than the leaves. Am I going to continuously have to worry about this tipping over? Or am I going to go ahead and pot it in something bigger? Let's see, look, it's no go. So what I need to do is root this perhaps in water. And once it gets a established root system, a very established root system, then I can repot it in one of these. I will set this aside to callus over, and then I have a perfect pot or a perfect vessel to put that in. It's very tall. And now we have this Rosita, which is very similar to the species Affinity Burtoniae. You can tell it's crawling up the back because look at all these huge aerial roots. I mean, this thing literally grabbed onto the back of my cabinet and started crawling up. So let's see what we got going on here. We got some roots coming out the bottom of the cup. They're rotted though. So this cup, I'm squeezing it. It's hard as a rock. That means the roots are completely filled up the pot. That's a good sign. Means the root system is healthy. Okay, that is good. I'm feeling this. This is just one mass. I know that when the root ball is like this, I know that the root system is healthy. The sheer fact that it's holding on into one piece tells me that there are no weak roots in that ball. So I only have to very gently tug at the outsides of it. And I'm going to disturb it as little as possible. I'm going to pot it up in here. If I can get the wicking cord to go through. My opinions on different mediums. There's a whole bunch of mediums out right now. And my opinion on mediums is that whatever works best for you is the medium you should use. I have feelings on different mediums. Because they do or do not work for me in my particular situation. For example, my personal viewpoint on Stratum is that it does not work for me. I have cuttings in Stratum. Almost every cutting I've had in Stratum, I've rotted the roots. I've literally rotted the cuttings. Now, that doesn't mean there's anything bad about Stratum. That just means that I have not learned to use it with my particular environment in my particular conditions. I live in a desert. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. We are drier than a bone here. Our weatherman likes to put up the relative humidity, when he does the weather. And a lot of times, it's below 10% here. And a lot of people say, 40% is the bare minimum. Well, we only get to 40% when there's monsoon rain. So my environment will not work. Or what I do to combat the idiosyncrasies of my environment will definitely not work for you. I water about every 7 to 10 days. Now, that is in my conditions. If I lived in a more humid environment, say 40 to 50% humidity, I may have to water less. Me telling you to water once every 7 to 10 days may may give you root rot in all of your plants. If you lived in a environment with, say, 60% plus humidity, you may only have to water every 2 to 3 weeks. To give you instructions on how I water would probably definitely give you root rot. Conversely, the advice that many people give to new plant parents would not work for people in my area. And that was what was hardest for me when I first began growing Hoyas. I was learning how to take care of Hoyas, but I was using other people's growing parameters, and I didn't understand why they weren't working for me. So the thing I would give advice to is listen to what people say, but pay attention to their growing conditions. Most YouTubers will say, I live in a environment with 50 to 60% humidity, or 30 to 40% humidity, or, I live in Florida where it's 70 to 90% humidity. Listen to them talk about their environment. That can be the difference between you having a Hoya grow or you killing a Hoya. Okay, now I'm on to my Gunung Gading. I always say it wrong. And I'm looking at this one a little more carefully because its growth has not been to the level I would prefer it. But I'm very gently pressing on the roots and they seem to be pretty good. So if the root system is good, but it's not really growing, that means it's too big for the pot. It needs to be upsized. So this is the plant. I got this as a 1-leaf cutting. So this right here was the original leaf, this leaf right here that I have my thumb on, and it grew all of this. Unfortunately, the stem died, the growth tip died right there. So it's going to have to have another growth point emerge in order for this to grow bigger. This leaf right here just emerged, and this leaf right here just emerged. Literally, when I filmed my last video, I held off on repotting it until now because of those 2 new leaves. So now that they're grown in, I can repot it and get more growth. I'm really excited. My daughter has a Gunung Gading, and hers is a lot. hers runs circles around mine. So I would love to get mine to a point where I can put it on a trellis. If you are going to consider any YouTuber or any blogger or any plant friend's growing advice, ask that person, what's it like in your home? How many plants do you have? Ask some questions about that. Find out more about their environment, because maybe they have 30 to 40% humidity, but they run 3 humidifiers, 6 hours a day. Or maybe they group all their plants together so that there is sufficient raised humidity around the plants. There could be a million different variables, but find out those variables before, dedicating that care tip to your plants and then wondering, something's going on. It must be my fault, because it's not always your fault. Taking care of plants is a journey. No one ever gets their first plant and says, I'll never kill this plant. Most of the time, people get a plant and say, I probably won't have this plant very long, but it's going to teach me a lot about how to take care of plants. And that's the goal. If you don't have that plant forever, let it be worth something. Let it teach you a lesson on how to raise further plants. And that's all you can ask for. You know, I grew up on a farm, and the cycle of life was very important. There was always a cycle of life, you know, animals on a farm or crops on a farm. We raised them, we took care of them, we supplied them everything they needed. But at the end of the life cycle, it was time for them to supply us what we needed. They supplied us. Plants are kind of like that. At least I view plants like that. If I'm going to supply my plants with what they need to grow and they don't make it, they need to supply me with something in return. Knowledge is what they need to supply me with. I raised calatheas. I got a Maranta back there. I don't raise calatheas now, but they gave me something. They taught me how to water humidity-loving plants. That came in exactly handy, learning how to take care of Hoyas. So see, even calatheas can teach you a thing or two. Okay. Now I'm getting into the trickier ones. These are getting into the end. Uh-oh. What do we got here? We have, we have root mealies. I'm going to spray these down with rubbing alcohol because the root mealy infestation is not bad. It's just a few. Okay, so got the root mealies sprayed down. Gonna feel these roots, gonna pull off anything that doesn't gently tug. See, I'm just gently grabbing them. Just gently pulling off anything that okay. So now I'm going to go wash the rubbing alcohol off so it doesn't desiccate the roots too much, because that would just kill it.
A few moments later.
So I washed this off, and now I have to face the same decision. Do I want to put this back into a small cup, or do I want to put it in a bigger cup? And these roots are really small. I want the plant to focus on repairing itself. So I'm going to put it in a small cup this time. But I'm going to put the roots pretty high up in the pot, so that way it doesn't get stuck, submerged in the water. Okay, there we go. There we go. Got that packed in there. And there we are, my variegated lacanosa, which I love. I love this little plant. It's a steady grower. Looks like it lost 1, 2 maybe leaves. but it's a steady grower, so I like it. Hi everyone. This is where I ended today's video part 2. I have 5 more Hoyas left to go. That will be part 3. I'll be working on editing that next. If you have any questions or comments, please list them below. If you want to make any comments about this series, like, dislike, anything, please let me know. And other than that, I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.